Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time.
The president of Nigeria had a phone conversation with President Trump earlier today, where he affirmed his commitment to the security of the nation and his protection of the rights as enshrined in the Constitution, rights to association, right to religion, and all of that. But, all said and done, despite the divisive nature of our current politics and everybody trying to put a spin on everything, I think Nigerians are just taking this in their strides and they continue to go about their businesses. And I think the only thing people are asking for is let the government wake up to secure Nigeria. And those of us who have to do our 9 to 5, who have to do our whatever hours, we just continue doing it today without everybody feeling that there was going to be a B-2 bomber in the air, trying to, or an F-17 stealth bomb, tactical fighter. I mean, we're just cool anyway.
Yes, greetings, and welcome to African News Review Extra. This is an extra because it's rather unique that we are going live at this time of day, but we should, in light of the prevalent news on social media as regards Nigeria, which is where the three of us would have our ancestral roots. I would start the introduction. Myself, I am Adesoji Iginla, and you know me, and what else can I say? And a new face here would be that of Ademola Adewusi, a childhood friend, an intellectual of high repute. His background is in borders and, shall I say, he's the head when it comes to neocolonialism and its impact on the African landscape. Fubara Eneli Esquire is, as you know her, co-host Women and Resistance, African News Review. And what else can I say about her? The author of Your Self-Love Revolution. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adesoji, for inviting me tonight.
Okay. I hope, so let's just start. As usual, we have to start this thing with the news where you currently are before we delve into whatever it is we are going to. So, starting with the sister, what's the news where you're at?
I really can't think of anything else besides the topic we're supposed to be discussing, but I would be remiss if I don't remind everyone in the United States of America that tomorrow is November 4th, and you should be going to the polls to exercise your right to vote as a citizen. It is a right that people shed blood, certainly tears, to ensure that we have, and it is a right that if we don't exercise, we may soon not have at all. So please go and vote. And interestingly enough, for those of you who are in New York, while the felon-in-chief is supposedly going to talk to some other country about so-called religious intolerance, we know that the ads are all over the place telling you not to vote for a man who happens to be a Muslim who nonetheless is offering the best option in terms of meeting the needs of the average New Yorker. I used to live in New York at one point, so although I no longer live in New York, I certainly hope that New Yorkers will go out and cast their vote for Mamdani. And if you're here in the state of Texas, please go to Rethinking Freedom, our YouTube channel. You can listen to our breakdown of the 17 proposed amendments to the Constitution. We recommend that you vote no on all but one of them. So go and get educated and go out and vote tomorrow.
Okay, Demola, what's the news where you're at? Which one? Your problem.
Which one?
Okay, for us in Nigeria, but I love Nigeria. We're a very resilient race, or a very resilient nation, and it's so funny that some of the things that other people think about or they experience and they suddenly go quiet. Nigerians actually turn it into humor. And we've been having a very good laugh in the past 24 hours about what could happen if, Nigeria moved from being a country of particular concern to actually a target of the United States. In the past 24 hours, I've seen memes, I've seen things on Facebook and Twitter. People have been saying that, Nigerian girls are, who are American soldiers, and we're going to have cast children after they leave Nigeria. Nigerians have been telling us that, Nigerian food, Nigerian pepper will be thrown in the eyes of American soldiers, and they know that they can't do much for us here. A lot of things have been said. I think the most important one was the fact that the president of Nigeria had a phone conversation with President Trump earlier today, where he reaffirmed his commitment to the security of the nation and his protection of the rights as enshrined in the Constitution, rights to association, right to religion, and all of that. But, all said and done, despite the divisive nature of our current politics and everybody trying to put a spin on everything, I think Nigerians are just taking this in their strides and they continue to go around, about their businesses. And I think the only thing people are asking for is let the government wake up to, secure Nigeria. And those of us who have to do our 9 to 5, who have to do our whatever hours, we just continue doing it today without everybody feeling that there was going to be a B-2 bomber in the air, trying to, or an F-17 stealth bomb, tactical fighter. I mean, we're just cool anyway.
Okay. So, you've sort of segued into the reason why here. It's, I've just taken one. I've gone with the BBC, which holds some sort of weight with regards to Nigerians based on its colonial past with Nigeria. So the BBC say Trump tells Nigeria to prepare for actions against Islamic militants in Nigeria, written by Joseph Winter. It says U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the military to prepare for action in Nigeria to tackle Islamic militant groups accusing the government of failing to protect Christians. It didn't say Nigerians, it said Christians. Well, it said Trump did not say which killings he was referring to, but claims of a genocide against Nigerians have been circulating in recent weeks and months in some right-wing circles. So I suppose the way to see this will probably be, could you help us, Sister Aya? Could you help us understand what is going on in the United States? That this should be how can I say it? A convenient news round for Mr. Trump.
Yes, I will answer your question, but there's a song. I often hear songs playing in my head, triggered by different things. And the two of you might remember this song from our childhood. Which way, Nigeria?
Yeah,
which way, Nigeria? I want to know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to start off by saying, release the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files. No, it is so rich, so absolutely rich. My parents are Christians. I grew up in a Christian family. I preached in churches, all of that. That this man is claiming to care about anyone of African descent. I don't care what their religious designation may be. Let's start at the very beginning here. Unprovoked, this man on his Truth Social posts this. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I think that there's so many things that we're normalizing in this day and age that we live in that is just, it requires us, I would say that it requires us to just pause for a second to imagine the president of a country governing via social media posts. And to type things like you're talking about a whole sovereign nation, right?
Yep.
That's what Nigeria is supposed to be. This is not a Hollywood movie. This is not The Apprentice. We're going to go in guns a-blazing to completely wipe out. What do you think you are? The president of the universe? Who are you exactly? And his concern is supposedly the killing of Christians. And at one point, they put out a certain number of supposedly the number of Christians that had been killed. First of all, there's really no legitimate figure of the number of people who have been killed in Nigeria because they're Christians versus those who've been killed because they're Muslim versus those who've been killed because they're traditionalists versus those who just caught strays. Let's just be very clear about that. Now, do we know that, yes, there have been attacks, and I can list a whole bunch of them for you, but Muslims have been attacked and killed, Christians have been attacked and killed, mosques have been bombed, Christian churches have been attacked, there are issues with herdsmen and farmers, and it's layered and it's nuanced. But let's just be very clear that a human being who is opening the doors, right, for white South Africans to come in hordes if they want to the U.S., who at the same time just revoked the visa for our Nobel laureate, who happens to be a Christian, as far as I know, who has also sanctioned Nigeria, attempted to, because we will not accept their deportees, who, by the way, is single-handedly killing more Africans, I would say tens of thousands of Africans, by cutting off aid that provided food and health to people. All of a sudden, no, it wasn't a gradual, hey, we're going to start easing off. It was just, boom, we're canceling the aid. We don't mind that medication and food rots, as opposed to letting people eat or letting people have the prescription, the drugs that they need to be well. That this same person all of a sudden now cares about you. And all I will say to all of my Nigerian friends who have been posting, Father Trump is coming to save us. Oh, thank you, Jesus, for answering our prayer. Can you imagine the chicken and the duck who are fighting each other over their food or whatever situation in a coop that they happen to share? Now deciding, you know what, I'm tired of fighting with you. Let us open this coop and invite the fox to come and protect. Yes, the chicken says, I'm going to invite the fox to come and protect me against the duck. And you think that is going to bode well for you? But okay, let's say that's too abstract for you. Please, by all means, can we look at any point in time in the history of African people where white people have come to settle anything for us, where we have not ended up being the rams that are slaughtered? I am Ijo. My people migrated from Bonny to Opobo. Let me just use that as a frame of reference. Bonny people had issues with each other. We are brothers and sisters. We go to different factions, go and start talking with the white man. They give us cannons and give us gunpowder. The next thing, there is a full-blown civil war in Bonny. We are firing on each other, destroyed half of Bonny. One group escapes. That group led by the man we now know as King Jaja of Opobo. And that is how that group, with a number of Wakeno leaders, including Fubara, which is my founded the place now called Opobo, the Kingdom of Opobo. Then the Bonny people, now beholden to the whites, their so-called white saviors, are now upset with King Jaja because he's diverted all of this trade, and Bonny is falling apart as this huge trading area that it used to be, right?
Yeah.
So now the white people are gunning, and the Bonny people who were brothers and sisters are now gunning for Opobo and the Jaja. Jaja tries to curry favor with the same white people. So he enlists Opobo men to go to Ghana to fight on the part of the British against the Ashantis. Britain ends up defeating the Ashantis, right? And then when the white man comes for King Jaja, guess what? But he's decimated. Ashantis are decimated. There is nobody left to fight for you. The next thing you know, they take him to the same Ashanti area, have their kangaroo court, sentence him, and deport him from his own kingdom. If we just go and learn a little bit of our history, what the hell, if I can use that terminology, do you think Trump is coming to do in Nigeria? I'm going to just stop there because I can go into some other geopolitical things that are going on right now. But let me just stop there for now. Ademola, I don't know if you have a different take on it.
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight.
Beautiful. I honestly like your pivoting into history because history is always there, and since we don't learn from history, it keeps repeating itself. And I've always said that you can't make a good leader, except you're steeped in the history of your people and you understand how your forebears fell into certain traps and how you should negotiate those traps, despite the fact that they're now contemporary. So some of the things you raised are so fundamental that, they need to be broken down for a lot of people to understand it. That anything the president of a sovereign nation does is usually not in the interest of another nation, another people. It is usually first and foremost in the interest of the nation that you have sworn to protect and to serve. And if we understand that is government. That's he has been brought into government to serve a country and a nation. We then put that aside. We then look at politics. A lot of people don't really understand the definition of politics. They think it's voting. They think it's elections. No, David Eastman says, and that's the most widely accepted. He says politics is the authoritative allocation of resources. It is who gets what, when,
and how. Yep.
That's Laswell, Harold Laswell. Now, the point that I make between government and politics is that somewhere in between those two usually lie the interest of any nation as professed by the head of that nation, either head of state, president, and all of that. So when I don't want to talk about the propriety of somebody governing via, social media, and I understand why this is happening because Trump also has, his own history. In the first Trump era, we were told point blank that he would never read any of the briefings by his intelligence chiefs. He would only, wing it. It would be a whim, and it would be, on a caprice. So I understand the fact that the depth, just like you mentioned, and you talked about the layers, the complexity, and the nuances that are required for you to understand what is happening in Nigeria and why Nigeria is a complex nation where you cannot just go in, guns are blazing, and So the first thing for me is I come from a family now where we're about 50% Christians, 50% Muslims. So if you wanted to wipe out all the
So you're wiping yourselves out.
yes,
Okay.
just like you said, just like it happened between the Joe and the Bonny people. So if you were to ask me now to arm myself and wipe out the Muslims in my family, it would be crazy. Because even Adesoji who is here might be in my target, might be in my rifle target. So So let's look at it this way. Nigeria is a complex nation. Trump wakes up and says he's going to come in guns ablaze. He doesn't understand Nigeria at all. And these same strategic mistakes have been made by America in every place in the world. And we can trace it from Vietnam to Afghanistan, to Iran, to Iraq, to Syria,
to South America.
To Cuba. And my problem with this is that Nigerians, especially the Nigerians who are very happy about this, they don't even understand what they're inviting. They're inviting chaos that is likely going to consume everybody, because I don't know how you're going to go to the streets of Jos now and say all Christians should be on one side and all Muslims should be on one side. The B-2 bombers don't discriminate who is on ground. The F-15 fighters don't discriminate who is on ground. So let's look at something. And you almost went there, Eneli. The things we're facing in Nigeria in terms of security, my background is in international relations, peace and conflict studies, and then, borders and migration. And I realized that a lot of the things that we're facing in Nigeria concerning security, they are happening against the background of the Sahelian pressure that all of us are facing. Now, this Sahelian pressure is coming in from Niger, it's coming from Mali, it's coming from Burkina Faso. And because African borders, and when people say African borders are porous, I've changed my mind about it. I think African borders were meant to be inclusive because we're not rigid societies. I mean, between Nigeria
and these are borders that they drew up anyway.
Thank you. Some guys woke up in Berlin and decided to draw lines in the sand somewhere. So, and because of my research in borders, last week I was in Cotonou, and then I came back into Nigeria and then went back to Cotonou for lunch. And that happens in Europe a lot. And I think Nigeria should be different. I have people who have farms in Cotonou, have farms in Benin Republic, and live in Nigeria. And I think it's a right that they have, because even in Mexico, I was in Tijuana, and people were telling me that, forget about the borders that have been militarized. This land belongs to us. The Mexicans told me that because they said the border went through them. They didn't go through the borders. Nigeria is going through a lot of stuff. We have gone through this since 2015. And a lot of the people who are happy about this designation as a CPC were the people who caused the initial problem for Nigeria. I'll give you an example. Boko Haram. Boko Haram existed in a very small place, and they had a very small mosque.
Yes.
And Yusuf was trying to tell people, don't send your children to Western schools. Boko Haram means what? Book is Haram. Simple. And he was doing this in a very small mosque. He didn't have leverage.
Please break that down further for people who have no idea what you said. You said book is haram. So break that down for the listeners who have no idea. So
Boko in that sentence of Boko Haram is actually a corruption of book, which is English, for the written text, the Western text. Haram in Islamic, like in Sharia, means forbidden. It is the opposite of halal, which is acceptable. Acceptable. So he said book Haram, and it was then collocated to Boko Haram, and it was in a very small mosque and was trying to make people see reason why they shouldn't send their children to school. And the intelligence report brought his case to President Obasanjo, and they said, okay, arrest this guy, and they arrested him, and they put him in the custody of the army for a while. He was paraded, and then the army gave him to the Nigerian police. While that was going on, his mosque was demolished, and his students scattered. And his sect then wrote to the government and said, please release our boss, build our mosque, and give us 50,000 naira. Those were the modest requests of the sect as at that time. While that was going on, the president, obviously had leveled their mosque, had scattered the students, and the Nigerian police ended up killing the man. And that was the beginning of the fight that Nigeria got into in terms of ideological fight. Because it is not a fight about resource, although there are issues with resources coming into it now. But then it initially was about, I don't want Western education because it corrupts.
Ademola, Ademola, if you can just hold on for a second. I think what you're pointing out now is so crucial for those of us who are here in the United States under this so-called Trump regime. Because when you're talking about Boko Haram and weaponized ignorance,
yeah.
the idea that you want people to be uneducated, which means that they're better, easier to control, easier to manipulate.
Very malleable. Yeah.
That is the exact same thing that we are facing here in the United States of America, where they are basically saying, we do not want real history to be taught in the schools. We do not want critical thinking. We are going to weaponize, financially control every institution from our kindergartens through our secondary schools, through our tertiary institutions. Yeah, here in the state of Texas where I am, the governor actually just removed a provost from his administrative position due to ideological differences. So when people are listening to these things, I want us to understand how interconnected these and yes, it looks like Boko Haram and they look different and all of that. But the idea of how authoritarians work and totalitarianism works, it's the same ideology, but weaponized ignorance. I just wanted to make that connection. We essentially want people stupid. We want them going to certain kinds of schools where they are not challenged, where they don't learn history, where they don't get to think, because then it's easier to control them. I'm so sorry to have interrupted. Please carry on.
You make a valuable point, because if you look at northern Nigeria now, northern Nigeria suffers from almost a feudalistic system where there are more than 8 million children who are roaming the streets and they are not taken care of by, they're called the Almajiri children.
Yeah.
The children, and all of this happened because people are saying, don't go to school, have as many children as you want, but they're perpetuating poverty and ensuring that these kids and even their parents can be used for political reasons. And because of poverty, they're easily conditioned by these sects who want them to do various things, terrorism, banditry, and all of that. So take that issue of Boko Haram now. It was done by Obasanjo, who did not handle it well. And we created a fertile ground for just dissent to become conflict, to let a disagreement become conflict. That conflict has spiraled into a multi-billion dollar
industry
problem now that Nigeria is trying to solve. Now, that's number one. Take again the instability that is all over the Sahel and the proliferation of
weapons,
the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. And now we're also seeing very heavy weapons being given to all of these countries. And if you look at the capstone, which used to be Libya, that has also been destabilized, it means if you look at Libya, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, even to our right, Chad and Cameroon
now,
Nigeria is right in the thick of negative forces in terms of conflict. So all of this is happening. Now, what I want to draw out from this is not a religious war.
No, it's not.
This is.
Could you repeat that bit, please? Could you repeat that?
It's not a religious war. This is insecurity. Muslims are being killed every day in the northern part of Nigeria, just as Christians are being killed in the Midwest, in the Middle East. Sorry, I said Middle East, Middle Belt of Nigeria.
Middle Belt of the country, yeah.
Now, and even in the Southeast now, you're seeing Christians killing Christians, because I listened very well to Governor Soludo. And for me, I speak Igbo. That's why the fact that I'm Yoruba. The guy said it in Igbo. He said, look.
In Igbo.
I na asụ Igbo. Abụ onye ofe mmanụ bụ a na-asụ Igbo. But Igbo onye Ejo.
I na-anụ ndị Igbo.
Okay. So, salute those truth and look
This
everybody in the face.
1 second. This is part of the problem that Trump does not understand. The intersectionality of people within the Nigerian sphere. There are people who speak all languages, and all of a sudden you are married. I mean, it's just wow. I mean, my family has the Christian side, the Muslim side, and the traditional side. We are custodians of the shrines in Lagos. So imagine, and you want to come in with what?
Yeah, my aunt is married to a Yoruba man, and they're Muslim. So what, am I going to kill them? You're like, what are we supposed to do here? What are you talking about? Yes.
So if you look at what is happening, the insecurity in the East now, that is even Christians killing Christians.
Yes.
Because the hotbed of that is Anambra State. And the governor of that state told us point blank that most of the people, 90% of the people that have been arrested have been Igbos, killing Igbos. Now, I cannot exonerate the Nigerian state for being incapable of guaranteeing, security in Nigeria.
Okay.
And this has been lingering for a long while. And I think instead of externalizing our problems to somebody who really doesn't understand our problems, I think it would have been more constructive for us to put internal pressure on the government. That's one. Let me tell you where I think the pressure point is. The former president, Muhammadu Buhari, told us that the nation had identified sponsors of terrorism.
But fails to mention them.
But he failed to mention them. I think it is high time.
But we have the research, though, that shows who was sponsoring them.
Yeah, but the research is not official until the government says these are the people. Now, I think it is high time that the government comes out and says these are the guys who are sponsoring terrorism, and because of that, we're going to charge them to court, whether they belong to my political party or not.
Or not, yes.
I think that's where the issue is. But now, let's look at, I don't want to look at the American, Trump has not been able to solve school shootings in America. They still happen every day.
No. Trump is weaponizing ICE against black and brown people. So you don't care about us. What are you talking about?
And
he sent weapons for Israel to exterminate the Palestinians. You didn't care about religious
there are Christian Palestinians as well.
Yeah.
Because they seem to think, for some reason, it's still this cut through that. I mean, it's just the manner in which we've allowed this guy to dictate what the issues are. He's clearly out of his depth. And I just want to go back to what Ademola was saying. Is it not true that in Nigeria, governors receive a security vote every month? What is the point of that security vote if there is insecurity in your respective states?
Okay. I'm going to say this at the point of being, at the risk of being a bit controversial. The governors are helpless. And I'll tell you why. Money is not security. Money is a resource that you can use to resource a security architecture that responds to you. Our current security architecture in Nigeria is top-heavy. What I mean by that is when you are the governor of a state, the commissioner of police in your state reports to the inspector general of police, does not report to you. I've seen instances where governors will tell a particular commissioner of police that you need to deploy to so and so place now, and he says, well, let me clear that with my inspector general of police. Okay?
You're absolutely right. And a case in point could be just what happened in River State. The governors really don't have that much power.
The military commanders in your state don't have anything to do with you. The only reason why they attend your security meetings is because they go home with some stuff, which you give to them as a matter of obligation and courtesy.
In fact, as a matter of policy, I believe that your police
chief,
They choose the police chief from outside of your state.
Yes. So, I mean, I've seen a police commissioner who was sent to Lagos State, and there was a problem in Abaroje, somewhere in Animosho, and the police commissioner in Lagos State was asking his oddly, where is Abaroje? Meaning his geographical understanding of Lagos State was zero. So that's why DSS person might not be from your state and doesn't answer to you. The commander of the NSCDC, Nigeria Civil Defense Forces, doesn't respond to you. So what do these people do with that money? I think that money just goes into the pockets of a lot of people. Yes, because that's on one side. On the other side, states that have put together the Security Trust Fund now fund the police that they do not command more than the federal government. So the problem now is when something happens, the response time of the police is determined by how well the IGP knows what is happening and how well the IGP can muster forces to go and respond. Now, the issues we now have with the kind of problems we have in the Northwest and the Northeast as well is that we're dealing with a very mobile, nomadic, guerrilla warfare kind of thing. These guys are not regular. They're not wearing uniforms. They can be in a village and they blend into the village like they are part of the village. It is only when they wreak havoc that members of that village community now say, oh, they were not one of us. And these guys know their route. 10 minutes they're at Ilela, 10 minutes they're in Damboa, 10 minutes they're in, Maradi, and they're out of Nigeria. Now, if it's hot again in Niger, they come back. If Niger is cool enough, they go back. So now let me give you an example. You remember that France led a multinational joint task force to help us with terrorism
in the Northeast,
within the Sahelian region.
Yeah.
And that multinational joint task force was providing intelligence to the Franco-African nations and denying Nigeria of that same intelligence, which allowed the Boko Haram sect to wreak more havoc in Nigeria than they did in other parts of, West Africa and the Sahel.
That would make sense.
Immediately, the military coups happened in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They quickly asked the French to go, and the French forces left. They left with all their equipment, but remember, anywhere where you put boots on ground and you put weapons in the hands of locals, those weapons are not disappearing. They will be used. And we're seeing a lot of that happening now. Some of the weapons that have been inventoried, some of them came from France, some of them came from the US, some of them were used in Libya, some of them were used in conflicts in Cote d'Ivoire, some of them were used in Niger, and all of them are in Nigeria now. There's this theory that says that, whenever weapons go into smaller countries for conflict, when the conflict settles down, the weapons find their way to the largest economy in that region, which is Nigeria. So you're seeing a lot of that happening. And this is not happening according to religion. That's why I want to, say to a lot of people, African nations have always been very tolerant and open about each other's religions. And in every nation I have gone in Africa, I am yet to see people be at each other's throats over religion. And in Nigeria, what I see is that when a lot of people share money, I remember when the Suki money was being shared, the NSA money was shared across ethnic identity, was shared across political identity, was shared across religious identity. I give you the story of one man who was sleeping, and they called him and said, "Leader, send us your account." And he woke up, sent an account, and saw 400 million. They didn't care whether it was Christian or Muslim. So this issue of weaponizing this illiteracy of an American president and giving me the wrong information about Nigeria is regrettable. That's one. I want something tonight.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's his purpose? What's his end game? What is he trying to accomplish? Because I'm thinking of Libya, and I'm thinking, could Nigeria be another Libya?
Okay.
Also, when you look at what's happening in the Sahel, you see what's happening with Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso, and how the French are being pushed out. We talked about Cameroon. We're now seeing what's happening in Tanzania, and so on and so forth. There have to be a place where the West finds how to re-engage or assert themselves again in a more powerful way. Like, what is the end goal? What besides sucking up oxygen and taking people's attention away from the Epstein files and not sitting the representative who can be the 218 signature for these files to be opened up? What is Trump's end game here?
Okay. Asking me about Trump's end game is asking me to psychoanalyze somebody who is already bipolar. Okay. And I'll tell you this. Trump does everything by the whim. So trying to find a method to his madness. But I'm going to take a guess at it. Okay.
And why did a white man do what he did?
Okay. So let's look at it this way. All of this is just pandering to the extreme right in America. It has nothing to do with Nigeria. I do not think Trump wants to invade Nigeria. I don't think so. Because, I mean, his military guys will tell him 230 million people you want to invade. If half of us in Nigeria, not even half, let's say 25% of Nigerians become refugees, the whole of Africa is gone.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what they want.
Ghana is less than 30 million. We can walk there. Benin is how many? I mean, come on. So everybody knows that if you touch Nigeria and West Africa, the whole of Africa is gone because the refugee crisis. And we're not refugees that keep quiet. We're never going to be refugees that are going to get to talk and say, please give us food. No. Nigerians are going to go there. So this Wahala now, we're here now. All of us are going to come in. That's one. So I know that what he's doing is just pandering to his core political base in the US and saying that he's supporting Christians in Nigeria and all of that. When one of the guys who was supporting, I've forgotten his name now, was asked which Christian has been persecuted that is the arrowhead of this in Nigeria, he mentioned Mazim Nnamdi Kanu.
Well, they're putting out statements talking about they are very excited to have Trump come and save them. I actually read a statement from Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB, which,
okay,
by the way,
I will share. 1 second, I'll share it.
Which, by the way, have been the source. I shouldn't say been the source. They have been at the center of a lot of the insecurity in the East, in the Southeast. So, yeah, I did see that letter. And then, of course, there's the other letter from the American Veterans of Igbo Descent.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Someone in the chat says the West is already in Africa. AFRICOM is live and well. Britain is in East Africa. France is in East and Central Africa. Africa is already occupied.
Well, there's an element of truth in that. AFRICOM is actually operating outside of Africa. They're based in Stuttgart, but although they do have a forward base in Somalia, I think it's Puntland or something. They have one there. So, and they don't need to be physically around now. All they need is a drone base, and that's it. So, yeah, you highlighted the evangelical base. Could you remind us when evangelism started in Nigeria, if you remember, in the early years? And what was the reason for it, and why did it just take off like that?
I think, I hope you know that this is a question that will take us some while to answer. And I'll tell you why.
Wait a second. You want to talk about it's not Ajayi Crowder?
No, reason
that was Orthodox Christianity. Remember that the Christian Missionary Society
yes
came to Nigeria. They came with education. They came with health. They came with healthcare. They came with other things. And the wave after that was Africans now trying to interpret Christianity in their own way. And then you saw the growth of African churches. You saw the growth of African churches under the Anglican umbrella. You saw the growth of African churches that were led by Africans and founded by Africans. You had the CAC, you had the CNS churches, you had the Celestial churches, you had the all sorts of, variants of Christianity led by Africans. But then people now felt, look, for us to evangelize more, we needed to repackage, speak like the Oyibo man, be like the Oyibo man, and then, preach like the Oyibo man. And, we now felt that a lot of people needed to come and teach us how to do that. So you saw people like Ray and
Bonka, yay. Yes.
Come to Nigeria. Oh, there was this
Jimmy
and all of
Swaggart.
that. And then that started the whole renaissance of revival, charismatic. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kenneth Copeland.
What's Billy Graham had crusades. Yes.
Billy
Graham, yes. Now, immediately after that came the charismatic, evangelical movements that started preaching about dressing well, faking it till you make it, manifesting it,
with the great music. They had a more polished feel. Yes.
Prosperity gospel and all of that.
Yes.
And that has subsided till now. Now, what I'm trying to say is that even in America, it has become so.
Yeah, 700 Club as well. Yeah, 700 Club.
Yeah, it has become very clear now that a lot of the people who call themselves Christians are just blue-collared white men and women who really have not gone to school, don't understand anything about politics, and the only instrumentalist option that politicians use to galvanize this base is Christianity. I remember, especially evangelical Christianity. I remember Trump's first era. One of the things he said to them, and which Paula White continued to echo, was that Trump was going to bring back the Bible to the White House, that Obama had taken away the Bible from the White House. And I found that very funny. Now, unfortunately, in Nigeria too, a lot of us are following that same template of don't listen to facts
or reason.
Don't be distracted with the facts, with the logic. Just believe in the man of God and let the man of God tell you what to do and all of that. So now the problem with that is you now have millions of people who do not engage with facts. They engage only with whatever their pastors tell them to do. And once you have that, and it's here in Nigeria, it's also in the US. Once you have that, they form millions of very malleable, pliant people who can be guarded, seriously as a reliable voter base for anybody. Once you have that reliable voter base, you guard them with your life, and you do everything to make sure that.
So you're saying that all of these people are playing the same game. Boko Haram wants weaponized ignorance, people they can control. The charismatic evangelicals also want people they can control. Trump and his people, they also want people they can control. This is basically the game.
It's the game. That's the game. And you see, let me give you an example. Even Mazi Nnamdi Kanu they are talking about. Some people started worshiping him as, the representative of Chukwokike Abiyama.
That is true.
And, he embodied, at a particular point, he would take the Anuka, he would take the flag of Israel and say he's a rabbi and all of that. So that symbolism of religious purity is one of the first things that you use to compose any level of extremism. J.M. Berger, who's written very extensively on extremism, says there must be that ingredient of religion and purity. When you say that, we're pure in spirit and we're pure in body, and whatever these people want to do to us is going to cause us to be impure. Because of that, we must fight them, which is what Trump is latching on now. You see, he's saying, look, religious liberty in Nigeria is not guaranteed. Christians are being killed. There's a genocide and all of that. And because of that, it's going to affect every Christian in the world. I find that ridiculous. And the reason I find it ridiculous is I don't know why you don't like Christians so much. Despite the fact that this man doesn't attend the church, he doesn't have a pastor.
And does not follow any of the tenets of the Christian Bible that I was brought up on.
So we must understand, let's get back to the issue of, some people trying to now quickly interlope in this and say, because I listened to the American veterans of Igbo descent, who said, look, this is not only about Christians, it's also about Nnamdi Kanu being released. And I was like, oh, really? Now we have turned the corner now from something being about Christianity to it being about politics. And one of the speakers told us that you cannot bring somebody from Kenya and come and, try him in Nigeria under terrorism laws in Nigeria. And I know that the President Trump, is going to revisit this injustice. I could not but laugh at the idiocy of that statement. One, if there is anyone who has done most renditions all over the world, is America. What did you think Guantanamo Bay was about? Do you think the people were in Guantanamo Bay for 8-7 years? Do you think they voluntarily surrendered their liberty? No. Some of them just went to buy bread in Syria and they were kidnapped.
They fit the description.
And they fit the description. Now, if there is any nation that, perfects rendition, takes you to a third nation and says,
to have your balls tickled,
it's America. That's one. Two, it's 2011. Terrorism charges are global. They're all over the world. They're multinational because a terrorist is a terrorist, whether it is in Nigeria or is any other place. The man needs to just wake up and say, this is my defense. That he was kidnapped in Kenya, that he was drugged and brought back to Nigeria, I don't know about that. The reason why I don't know about it is because even in the UK, he was using the instrumentality of the internet and radio to cause havoc in Nigeria. So if you're telling me that the Kanu should be freed and he has not done anything, why is Simon Ekpa in jail in Finland?
Yep.
I think it's also surveillance for us to say.
What is clear from this conversation is that we could actually do a weekly series breaking this stuff down because it's so nuanced. The history of Nigeria, the history of Africa, you cannot with a tweet or a social media post analyze what is going on. And for people who are just responding with these knee-jerk responses. Oh, I love Jesus, therefore, thank you, Father Trump, and all of that. It is. I've quite frankly been appalled at the lack of critical thinking. I believe it was Marcus Garvey that unfortunately called us a nation of children, and some of the responses, even from people who appear to or should know better, has been appalling and is very dangerous in terms of what you could possibly be inviting. Because remember, when we talk about the Berlin Conference, one of the ways that they were able to justify how they divvied up Africa is that they came and they said, oh, see, this area signed this treaty with us. This other area signed this treaty with us. So they've already agreed that they are under our care. They are under our protection. So when you have Nigerians themselves co-signing this idiot, this felon in chief, this adjudicated sexual predator, this grifter, and saying, oh, yes, thank you, come and save us, as opposed to us saying, yes, we do have issues and two things can be true at the same time, but we need to sit down and figure out our issues ourselves. That is very, very concerning to me. And then just on this issue of religion, I just feel like I absolutely have to insert this, the notion of purity and being able to think critically for yourself. Ayikwe Ama warned us about this. He is very critical even of the pharaohs and ancient Kemet. And this notion of you have to have this human being that says they've got divine power from, whatever. And this divinity now has given them the power. And it's only through their lineage now that you can be ruled. And you can't think for yourself. You just have to do what this person says because they are getting it directly from God, but only them because you can't hear directly from God in that way. That has always been a problem for us as Africans. And it behooves us, whatever your form of spirituality may be, to kind of think about how these things come into play and how we might just be walking into and inviting, if you will, disaster onto ourselves.
So I'm minded to, we're coming to the top of the hour. So
someone was asking about Toyin Falola, so I just want to hold this book up for them. And my Claude Ake and the other books are not near here, but yes,
Claude
but feel free
Ake,
in the
political history of Nigeria, political economy of Africa. Yeah. I'm minded to ask, okay, so Trump has made this threat. Do we look at it through the lens of neocolonialism or, because I think that's the part that most Africans or most Nigerians currently don't kind of get. When you talk about neocolonialism, could you tie it to that statement to sort of say, okay, yes, you were, quote unquote, ruled by the British. They left but didn't leave. Now America wants its clause in there. Could this be a ploy to get in? Or if not, what is the best case scenario to explain what we're currently experiencing in terms of the neocolonial angle?
When people say neocolonialism, sometimes I look at that term. That's why the fact that it's widely accepted. Sometimes I don't accept it because I don't think the colonialism stopped.
Ademola, I like you. I like you a lot.
I don't think, trying to say something is new means that there was an old one. And for me, a virus might mutate, might morph, but it's still a virus and it's the same virus.
But it's a new virus, though.
Sorry.
But it's a new virus, though.
Yeah, but it still carries the imprints of the other one, So for medical reasons, you have to classify it as a new virus, But, Now, if you look at Nigeria, I think we have been confused for a while. We were ruled by the British, but we woke up one day and said we wanted to change from right-hand drive to left-hand drive. America. And then we woke up one day and said, we want the American system, the presidential system of government, bifocal camera, by camera legislature, so to say. And then we imposed that on a British judicial system. And then, we just mishmashed everything together. And then we decided we're going to have this nation that will be able to cherry pick and choose what, And while we were doing that, the British, the military came and said, oh, yeah, okay. You guys,
military
okay.
System.
I want a military system. I don't want all this. So those experiments have always allowed us to look at other nations and say to ourselves, they're better than us, despite the fact that we don't understand the things they're going through. I think the Americans have suddenly found out that the kind of powers they have given to the president of the United States can be used in so an arbitrary way that it can be authoritarian, it can become dictatorial.
Yeah.
I think they just found out that the president of the United States could wake up one day and say, look, I want a parade. And I want the parade to be as big as, and it gets done. For Nigeria, what has happened to us is we have left several stages of being colonized by the British. And we have now become colonized by several stooge masters. I'll give you an example. If you look at our oil and gas sector, the Americans had the best of it. If you took away Shell and BP, Mobil, Exxon, and then it became ExxonMobil, Chevron, and all of that, there were a lot more American companies doing business with us. And, because they were doing business with you, they had your cash call. They were the ones giving you dollars. Economic power, money, becomes influence. So they could twist whatever the government was trying to do. Now that we're pivoting towards China in terms of our infrastructure development, in terms of our loans, the Americans are not happy because we now have introduced another set of ropes to our puppetry. If China is pulling the hands, America will be pulling the legs, and Nigeria will be dancing in one way or the other. So now, why are you laughing? So the point now is, it's just like when you have a nation that really has not forged for itself a direction, has not forged a direction, has not forged a strategy. Everybody's going to be telling you what to do. The Yorubas have a way of saying this when they say, when you have not done well with your life, your matter becomes Olohun Yohun, meaning everybody can just talk to you anyhow.
Anyhow, yeah.
So you see that at some point, the US would issue a travel advisory about Nigeria. 2 days after that, people get killed in Texas or in Colorado, in Portland, Oregon, and Nigeria will not issue a travel advisory. You know, and then, so everybody is trying to put pressure on Nigeria in their own interest, not in the interest of Nigeria. And I always think about that because the basic thing you understand in international relations with the use of power, the projection of international power, is about interest. So there's a lot that has been done to Nigeria that has to do with the continued colonialism of our minds and our resources. I remember AGOA. Obama launched it, and a lot of Nigerian products were supposed to be taken into the United States. Nothing happened. We still have other things like that. Even the British have said you can export to the UK and all of that. We're still on the fringes.
Kenya was able to export, which is why they were in a lot of trouble when it looks like Trump's administration isn't going to renew it. Yeah.
I remember, one of the things we talked about the last time you and I had a discussion like this was the fact that Trump was actually going to fight Rwanda because they said they were not going to take second-hand clothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you look at that now, is that not colonialism? How do you make it a national policy that we must wear your second-hand okrika, your brown select?
By the way, let me let Americans know. So I did take a young boy to the market in Port Harcourt to buy some clothes. And I was quite amazed. This was in 2022. I was quite amazed to find out that when we all go and donate our clothes for free to Goodwill in some kind of system they have with the US government, ships those clothes to African nations and possibly South American nations, but I can speak for African nations in particular. It's built into many different agreements where these countries must accept these items, and then it's sold there. So you're giving your clothes for free to Goodwill. Goodwill is making money off of your clothes. Just wanted you guys to know. And the tag still said Goodwill. They still even had like the dollar amounts or whatever that they supposedly were going to resell them for in US for those that I was looking at. And so there's a whole racket that is going on. But you're absolutely right. So our textile industries are completely depressed because how do you compete with the West just dumping all of their used items
and it's gotten so bad now that it has impact on the environment as well. Because if the market cannot consume it, it's dumped literally in the rivers.
So now, sorry, let me end where I was going with that issue. Trump is not the best of diplomats in terms of diplomatic finesse. And you realize that when a man as uncouth as the current president of the United States wants to talk to another sovereign nation, and I don't mean only African nations, I mean even nations that are in Europe, he talks down at everybody. And, that is his trademark, engagement technique. And when he's angry at something, he doesn't limit it to even the leader, or he says now disgraced country. I don't know where Nigeria became disgraced. I don't know where, and all of that. But the point is, I have studied geopolitics for a while. And, I have a degree in international relations that is dated 1994.
Old man.
And if there's anybody now who is going to be disgraced very soon, I think it's America. Because if you look at all the indices
it's already
of development, it is going to be against America in the next 10 years. You are losing out in fiber optics, optic fiber manufacturing. NVIDIA is losing out to Chinese companies. BYD is now the number one EV seller all over the world. Huawei is going to overtake it. So I could go on and on about all of that. And, the indices, I read The Economist, and they were pretty clear that the next global power, and that is likely going to be a dominant power, is China, not the United States. I was listening to, I've forgotten his second name now, but his name is Michael. His first name is Michael. He's a Chinese diplomat, lawyer. He studied in Stanford. I've forgotten his name. And, he was saying, look, America is already behind. Don't let us talk about, in terms of development of connectedness of cities, in terms of high-speed rails, in terms of all of that, America is no longer there. So I say that as a proud African. And I know that some of the reasons why we're where we are is because the colonialism that we think is new is still the same colonialism, just different people. It's just different people. I remember when I was in school, they were talking about the new International Division of Labor, which was why the Asian tigers were given opportunities to develop. You would make components, and those components will land in Malaysia and they'll become a TV, you become a speaker and all of that. Africans were not given that opportunity. As we speak, 90% of African trade is still extractive. And if you look at Africa today, the most blessed of African nations are the most conflict-ridden.
Yep.
If you look at Congo today, it has everything in the world. And yet Congo is... And for people who like to talk about religion so much and they don't understand the divisive nature of international politics, Somalia is one race, one ethnic identity, and 99% Muslim. Yet, it is a failed state. Now imagine Nigeria with 250 ethnic identities, over 300 languages, and we're asking somebody to come and divide us more and then give us, I don't know what you want to do.
Sister? Same question. The colonial angle, as Ademola said, not new. There's nothing new about it.
So ask the question.
So I was asking that in light of Trump's statement about sending in the boys, as it were, will that continue to be seen as part of the new colonial angle on, as the umbrella over Africa, as opposed to how we can determine our own course? Let's just go intellectual a bit. What's his name? Walter Rodney, in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, said the idea of our underdevelopment is intentional. So clearly, with what Demola just said, the elites we have, which Aiko Amar points to, have determined that this is the state we are going to be in. So in light of Trump's outburst, for want of a better word, how do we break away from this kind of repetitive nature of name calling, we responding, and then we're back to business as usual?
So, unfortunately, this conversation is happening around, his dumb post. I am reminded of Toni Morrison's comment about the white gaze. And I feel as though Africans for far too long, for a variety of reasons, many of them historical, obviously, that we have been puppets in the hands of a lot of external forces. Whether we look at the Arabs, who often get a pass, but they have wreaked havoc across the continent of Africa and continue to do so today.
Yep.
With even the funding of Boko Haram, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly these Christian crusades and these Western forces and so on and so forth. And so I don't want to anymore focus, although you have to always be aware of what your adversaries, your oppressors are trying to do. I would really love to see us turn inwards, if you will, and figure out what we have to get ourselves to where we want. So, for instance, at the recent United Nations meeting, where so many of our African and Caribbean leaders came and spoke eloquently, and the African leaders were making the case for why we should have more African nations on the Security Council and so on and so forth. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. Okay, I'm not going to fight you on that. But to what degree are you all coming together and resolving the issues that we can resolve internally? So just like Ademola is talking about being able to be in Nigeria for a meeting and going for lunch in Cotonou, because people can be in London. My brother can be in Paris for breakfast, and he's in Hamburg for a new meeting, that kind of thing. What are the things that African leaders can do if they would come together and work together outside of the white gaze? Now, do we have to be aware of, yes, we have these external forces, yes, but if we came together ourselves and say, what is it that we need to do internally for ourselves? That's what I would want our focus to be. Where are our think tanks for the good of our own nation? And so when we look at the African Union, for instance, where are we bringing together our scientists? And we have many scattered across the globe, and saying, okay, we've got all of these resources across the continent. What is our long-term plan? What is it that we can do? How do we connect? How do we work together? What is our 25-year, 50-year plan? What are we doing in terms of roads, infrastructure, so that our railroads and even these ports that we're getting China to build for us are not just so that China can bring more things for us? I was sharing with you earlier the meme that says Africa imports everything, including our gods.
Yep.
So that we are building roads that connect us to each other, railroads that connect us to each other. So I think that so much of our focus has been on how can we get aid from the white man? How can we meet the standards set up by the IMF? How can we, but if you look at these quote unquote austerity measures that people like me have heard of since we were kids, if we had actually tightened our belts according to our own standards, there is nothing we couldn't be producing in Africa right now for ourselves, because we are an incredibly resourceful people. And we go to other parts of the world and we are very productive. And so when you're talking about colonialism, I really want to take my focus off. And I know there are people who are saying, hey, you're in the United States. Let me tell you, even though I'm here, everything I'm trying to do right now is how do I build with my people? How do we strengthen ourselves? How do we consolidate? And how do we get beyond just always responding to our oppressors, but instead having a game plan for ourselves that we implement, that we understand? When you look at the Marshall Plan for Europe, it wasn't a 2-year plan. It wasn't a 5-year plan, right? It had longevity. That's
Correct.
the same. China didn't just all of a sudden show up. They had a plan. And so when we talk about Africa, I would love to see, okay, we on African News Review on Sunday, November 2nd, right? We talked about the Pan-African Congress in Manchester.
1945.
We were coming together and having these conversations. Where are we doing that today as Africans across the diaspora? For those who are saying, oh, we're looking for things to invest in, who have extra money across the diaspora. Oh, wait a second. We've got this hydro plant. And here are the business plans. And here, there's so much we could be doing differently, as opposed to just feeling like we're at the mercy of colonialism, neocolonialism, whatever you call it. Because as Ademola said, these other nations are doing exactly what they should do, which is to take care of themselves. And they don't need to care about us. The question is, can we care about ourselves and take care of ourselves?
Yes, I just wanted to add a bit to
minded. We've gone over an hour.
Eneli was saying.
You wanted to say something, Ademola?
I am not a believer in the borrowed robes of Western democracy.
Okay, go on.
I feel that Western democracy, and I'll tell you this: if you look at everywhere where Western democracy thrives now, they did not develop under a democracy. They developed mostly under a monarchy or a dictatorial government, and then democracy now took a root. If you look at Singapore, that is usually the poster boy of being able to do a national transformation in 10 years. It wasn't a democracy that Lee Kuan Yew did. If you look at everywhere now that is undergoing very rapid economic transformation, from China to the Middle East, none of them is a democracy. Now, you see that borrowed robe of democracy for neo-colonial minds. It's a toxic relationship. You see children in Nigeria now who are 3-4 year old and they want to speak with a locally acquired foreign accent. They don't want to eat eba again. They don't want to eat fufu. They see everything African as inferior. You see, the borrowed robes of democracy give you some kind of superiority because you're wearing a suit and a tie and socks in the tropics of Africa. And I think it boils you. And then you're wearing a wig. And your brain is
the worst
fried.
one is that wig.
So now the problem
worst
with
one is
that
wig.
Borrowed robe of democracy.
That wig that the lawyers
It's also
wear.
that it allows the worst of us to rule us. I'll give you an example. If you can go abroad and be a fraudster and bring in $5 million into Nigeria and contest for an election, you will win in your state. Despite the fact that you've got nothing to offer that state. Now, the problem is that, she was talking about development plans. Most of our development plans now are even supposedly funded by neo-colonialists. The African Union wanted a building in Addis Ababa. China built it and bombed the entire place so that nothing could be said without Beijing knowing exactly what was happening. So we have created an Africa where you have to be born and then you go out and live your life somewhere else. But when you die, you want to come and die in Africa. You want to be buried in Africa. So we've had a lot of talk shops about Africa. I think we need doers. That's one. Most importantly for me is that we now need to craft our own system of government and governance that is different from this Western democracy because it's a lie. And I'll tell you why.
The fear of God will enter you. So Adesoji, that comes back to what we were saying yesterday when we were talking about the fact that the system itself is corrupt. The governmental system that African countries have embraced itself is corrupt. That's exactly what that's exactly the point that he's making.
Okay. To end, I just want to underscore the point. We're talking about where the United States has been. Let's start 1959, Iran, the Shah's Men. You can read that by Stephen Kinzer's book, which is An American Coup and the Roots of Middle East Terror. That's one. Two is we've all seen this gentleman before who knew that it was the United States that funded him to the Saudis. So Unholy Wars, Afghanistan, American and international terror. That's another one. When it comes to Africa itself, we are reminded that what we currently experience has been planned. And so Susan Williams' book, White Malice, The Recolonization of Africa, she writes that. Whereas a more global one would be Vijay Prasad's Washington's Bullets. There you go. It's there. History of CIA coups and assassinations. This is global. This is all the way South America, Asia, Africa. It's all that. And very short book. It's It's easily accessible. But if you want to focus on the Monroe Doctrine, which said no one can come into America's backyard and have any sort of influence, overthrow Stephen Kinzer. This is there. It says America's century of regime change from Hawaii to Iraq. So everywhere they've been. Let's just say, I think somebody said it a couple of years ago that the United Nations has 186 member countries, and the US has been in 182 of them. Let that sink in. So be careful what you wish for. And I would like to thank Ademola and Sister Aya for hitting the call at such short notice. I did take you away from your weekly activities, but I'm sure you've given context to what we're currently experiencing. And hopefully people heed to say the white man's ice is not as cold as you think it is. In fact, it's not for you. Final thoughts, Ademola? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for just your leadership. And thank you, my brother Ademola. I love your analysis. I love everything that you had to share, and I look forward to learning more from you. And just to my African brothers and sisters, we need to return to loving ourselves. We must cure ourselves of this virus of internalized self-hatred. We must cure ourselves of these things that have been injected into us that cause us divisions. We must get back to loving ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, and if this is your first time here, do like, share, and subscribe. All the good stuff. Promise to bring similar type conversation. You can join us for African News Review. And this week, the sister and I will be doing Women and Resistance, which is our podcast where we look at the role women have contributed to the struggle and how they've contributed. And yes, we continue to do the work. African News Review is on Sundays, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, do like, share, subscribe. You can also download the audio version of this on where you get your favorite podcast. So thank you for coming.
The channel has been at the same number of subscribers for like a month.
Yes.
Time to move needle. We're getting to the end.
Let's get to 2,000. Let's get to 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Let's get to 2,000 people. Yeah, 2,000. Let's get to 2,000 by the end of the year. So that will be because by the end of the year, we'll actually be reaching 100 episodes of African News Review. So let's get to 2,000, 2 milestones, 100 and 2,000 subscribers. Or hopefully more than that, but that's a target. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you, sister, for coming through. And for our audience, thank you all. And until Wednesday, when we come again, it's good night and God bless.
Good night.
That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review podcast. We hope you are leaving with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.